For the first time, test every CRT on the market and restore 9 out of 10 weak or shorted CRTs or your money back with the Sencor CR70 Beam Builder, CRT Analyzer, and Restorer. We will look at the 4 exclusive features of the Beam Builder that make these claims possible. First, we will see how the CR70 is able to test every CRT on the market, even oscilloscope tubes, now and in the future. Second, we will learn what makes the CR70 tests the most reliable tests possible. Third, we will examine what fails in the CRT to see why the 5 levels of the CR70 Progressive Restoration allows you to improve 9 out of 10 bad CRTs. Finally, we will look at the CR70's protection. First, we want to learn how the CR70 can test every CRT now and in the future. To understand this, we need to understand the biggest problem with conventional CRT testers, those confounded adapter sockets.
You want to test a CRT, so you grab your present CRT tester and find the tube is not listed in the setup book. You call the tester's manufacturer, if they're still in business, and you learn it will cost you $20 and take 3 weeks to get the adapter you need. Will your CRT application wait that long? Probably not, but you order the adapter anyway, so you're ready the next time you need to test that CRT. Or, worse yet, the manufacturer tells you that this CRT has some kind of a freak, one-of-a-kind basing, and they don't have an adapter for it. You still need to test the CRT, whether it is a one-of-a-kind or not, so you're stuck guessing. If you presently use a CRT tester, you know how often this happens. And the worst news is that it's only going to get worse.
You see, components and circuit designs have improved dramatically in the past few years. Innovations such as comb filters, synchronous detectors, and SAW filters all bring us a little closer to perfect picture quality. In order to keep up, the CRT designers have to improve the CRT. So they've introduced dual-focus tripotential tubes, inline tubes, and slot matrix tubes, just to name a few. This has resulted in over 4,000 different CRTs in use today. At our present rate of growth, this number will double in the next few years. The good news is that picture quality is improving. The bad news is that these new tubes require a lot of new tester sockets.
It's actually an electrical problem, not a mechanical one. Let's use this adapter from the Sencor CR31A as our example. Up to 5 years ago, most new color CRTs used this socket, which we called socket number 9. Then someone moved the filament connections from pins 1 and 14 to pins 4 and 11, leading to socket number 10. Eventually, we ended up with 7 different sockets, all mechanically identical to number 9, but with the pins switched around. We know of 5 more ways to wire this same socket to test a few special tubes, bringing the total to 12. When you combine these 12 sockets with all the other duplicates, you end up needing 64 different adapters at a cost of $960 to test the 4,000-plus tubes listed in the Master Tube Setup book. By comparison, the CR70 uses only 6 adapters to test all 64 CRT types. How is this possible? The secret is in our switches. We provide 1 socket for each different CRT base. Then we use the switches to match the electrical connections. Here's how this works.
A CRT tester must make 5 electrical connections to the CRT elements to test the electron gun. These elements are the cathode, the control grid, the screen grid, and both ends of the filament. The CR70 has 5 switches that connect to these elements. Each switch has 14 positions that match up to the 14 pins of a CRT socket. If, for example, we have a CRT with the filament connected to pins 1 and 14, we switch the F1 switch to position 1 and the F2 switch to position 14. Similarly, we set the cathode, G1 and G2 switches to match the pins connected to these elements. Now, if G1 moves from pin 3 to pin 6, we simply move the G1 switch to position 6. It's just like getting a new socket. In addition to the socket problem, the unique CR70 design takes care of another common CRT tester problem. From time to time, you may run into a CRT that is not listed in the setup book. The CR70 is the only CRT tester that lets you use the schematic to determine the setup procedures for CRTs not listed in the setup book. The CR70 manual gives you easy-to-follow instructions for developing your own setup. To make the CR70 completely obsolete-proof, a 5-clip universal adapter is available that connects directly to the CRT pins for any tube that uses a non-standard socket. You can test any tube if you can get at the pins. You'll never have to buy another socket again. When you add all this up, you can see why the CR70 is truly the only obsolete-proof universal CRT tester on the market. We guarantee it.
Point number 2 is that the CR70 has the most reliable tests possible. The CR70 completely analyzes the CRT electron gun with separate tests for shorts, black level, white level, life, and color balance. In order to understand these tests, we need to know what goes wrong with CRTs. Before we can do this, we need to review how a CRT works.
The cathode forms the electron beam needed to strike the phosphor screen. The control grid is a cylinder with a tiny hole in it immediately in front of the cathode. The electrons from the cathode are formed into the electron beam by being pulled through this hole by the large positive potentials on the accelerating grids. The tiny hole in the control grid operates much like the iris of a camera lens. The amount of negative bias with respect to the cathode potential electrically changes the size of the G1 aperture, causing what we call the virtual aperture. The size of the virtual aperture constantly changes as the grid bias changes. When the bias is high, the virtual aperture is small, reducing the beam current. Less bias enlarges the virtual aperture for periods of high beam current.
There are 3 basic types of CRT failures that must be identified by a reliable CRT tester. First, shorts may develop between the closely spaced elements. Second, the center area of the cathode may wear out before the outside edges, causing what many technicians call a gassy tube. Third, the cathode may be covered with a layer of crud that prevents the cathode from forming the needed electron beam. A bad CRT may have 1, 2, or all 3 of these conditions.
Shorts can occur in 2 places, between the heater and cathode, or between the control grid and some other element. You can often isolate a cathode short with a special isolation transformer connected to the filament. You cannot safely use a restoring system to remove an HK short without damaging the filament during most attempts. A control grid short, on the other hand, is usually removable with the CR70 shorts removal function. It is usually caused by a flake of cathode material lodged between the cathode and the control grid, or between the control grid and G2.
The controlling action of the G1 virtual aperture causes different areas of the cathode to be involved as the beam current changes. Only the center part emits electrons when a high bias causes a small virtual aperture. The entire cathode surface emits electrons when the virtual aperture is wide open during the high beam current. Oftentimes, the center of the cathode wears out before the outer edges. When this happens, the CRT still produces normal white levels, but the worn center area causes the beam current to drop too quickly as the bias closes the virtual aperture for gray picture elements. Thus, gray areas appear too dark. The picture takes on a bright, shimmery appearance with bright whites and deep blacks. A scope tube will produce peak brightness, but drop to near zero brightness very quickly as the intensity control is reduced. Most technicians call this a gassy tube, although air has nothing to do with the condition. The correct term for this problem is poor gamma, or the inability to accurately produce different shades of gray.
The other type of cathode failure occurs when a layer of positively charged ions covers some or all of the cathode surface and restricts its ability to emit electrons when heated. The engineering term for this condition is cathode poisoning. Poisoning causes one of 2 CRT symptoms depending on how much of the cathode is affected. The picture, or intensity of a scope tube, may gradually become dimmer but maintain good contrast if the entire cathode is affected. Or the CRT may simply show restricted contrast if the outside areas of the cathode are more severely poisoned than the center area. This happens because the center area almost always emits beam current, while the outside areas only emit electrons during peak whites. This tends to keep the center area open and is just the opposite of the gassy or gamma problem covered earlier.
Now that we know what goes wrong with the CRT gun, let's see how the CR70 provides the most reliable tests possible. We have 2 goals with these tests. First, we want to have reliable tests so we can accurately separate good tubes from bad ones. Second, We want to obtain enough information so we can tell which beam building function will be most effective.
We must set the setup switches to the correct positions using the information in the setup book or from a schematic as explained earlier. Part of the setup is to set this exclusive CRT type switch, located in the lower left panel, so the CR70 circuits properly match the type of CRT you are testing: video, projection, or scope.
We first test for shorts. The CR70 has two tests, one to detect heater cathode shorts and one to find control grid shorts. As you will recall, we need to have the tests separated to determine if they can be removed with the beam builder. Both tests read directly on the good-bad meter scale because we all know how difficult and confusing so-called idiot lights can be to interpret or to explain to someone else. Watch this light. For example, now, did that flash represent a short? Does it represent leakage that is almost a short? Or should it do that every time? If you think you know the answer, put yourself in the position of a non-technical customer or supervisor that is watching you test a tube. How do they know what it means?
The next test is exclusive to Sencor CRT testers. We call it the cutoff test. It tests to see if the tube produces the proper amount of beam current when biased to the black level to isolate tubes with the gassy or gamma problem we discussed earlier. A good tube lets you set the meter to the little black box marked cutoff set as you adjust the cutoff set control. A tube with poor gamma will not set into the box even if the control is turned fully clockwise. If the tube passes the cutoff test, you leave the cutoff set control set to the position that brought the meter into the cutoff set box and move to the emission test. The emission should read in the good area on the meter. This may sound like the emission test found on other testers, but really isn't. Here's why. The cutoff test and the emission test combine to produce a dynamic test of the CRT emission from its darkest to brightest picture levels. The cutoff set control adjusts the G2 voltage to the level needed to overcome the G1 bias applied by the bias setup switch. Switching to the emission function removes the G1 bias, allowing maximum beam current to flow through G1 to G2. Since the same G2 voltage is applied in both cases, you have tested the cathode through its dynamic operating range. You press the emission life test button for a final test that should be applied to all CRTs. A good tube will show little, if any, drop in the emission level as the button is held down. The life test drops the filament voltage by 25% to identify marginal tubes that are affected by AC line voltage fluctuations, or to approximate the life of a CRT you have improved with the beam building functions.
Color tubes, or the three individual tubes of a color projection system, require a color tracking test. The three color guns may have the correct cutoff and emission, but the strongest gun may be so much stronger than the weakest gun that they cannot be balanced for a good color picture. The CRT manufacturers have established a color tracking standard that says the strongest gun cannot be more than 50% stronger than the weakest gun for proper balance. The CR70 tests for color tracking with a special patented test using memory circuits to store the current values as you test the red, green, and blue guns for emission. After testing all three guns, you switch to the color tracking function. When you have the gun select switch in the red position, the circuits compare it to the green and blue gun. Then you move it to the green and to the blue positions to compare each gun to the other two. A gun that is more than 50% weaker than one of the others reads in the bad area of the meter.
Each of the CR70 tests identifies a different CRT failure. The tests are dynamic and based on the CRT manufacturer's specifications. The test results, in turn, tell you which of the CR70 beam building functions have the best chance of improving a bad CRT. This brings us to our third point. The CR70 improves at least 9 out of 10 CRTs with shorts or weak emission. How can we make such a claim? Progressive Restoration, a Sencor exclusive.
Restoration takes high current levels which can damage CRTs if not properly controlled. That's why we provide 5 different levels of shorts removal and restoration. We call this Progressive Restoration. Each level is stronger than the preceding, so you can start low and work up, only as needed. In this way, you can get the job done without damaging the guns. Here's how it works. First, the CR70 beam builder lets you remove most G1 shorts. You simply move the function switch to the Remove G1 short position and wait about 30 seconds for the filament to cool, so you don't run the risk of damaging the filament or cathode. Then press the Rejuve or Restore button. Watch the CRT neck for a flash, indicating the shorting material has vaporized. Then confirm the short is gone with the G1 shorts test.
CRT failures other than shorts require rejuvenation or restoration. Rejuvenation and restoration both force the cathode to emit high levels. The manner in which this occurs, however, causes a vast difference in the effects on the cathode. Rejuvenation discharges a large capacitor through a current-limiting resistor and the cathode. This causes a large cathode current to flow for a few milliseconds. The timing is self-limiting because the process ends when the capacitor is discharged, and a cathode drawing a large current discharges the capacitor faster than one drawing a weak current. The combination of high current and short time causes rejuvenation to affect a fairly small area of the cathode. The main use of rejuvenation is on CRTs that are so badly poisoned that no restoration current will flow. A shot of rejuvenation starts enough current flowing to allow the restoration functions to finish the job. Restoration, on the other hand, is used for most beam building. Restoration increases the filament voltage to raise the cathode temperature. A current higher than normal beam current but considerably lower than rejuvenation current is then passed through the cathode for several seconds. The cathode surface becomes superheated as a result of the increased filament voltage and the increased cathode current. Unlike rejuvenation, restoration affects nearly all of the cathode surface, causing the poisoning ions to boil off and exposing fresh cathode-emitting material. The CR70 provides 1 automatic and 2 manual levels of restoration. The CR70 instructions tell you when to use each based on the results of the cutoff, emission, and emission life tests. The current levels are automatically matched to the CRT when you set the CRT type switch to the correct position during your initial setup. This gives you enough current to remove ion poisoning with the best combination of effectiveness and safety. The restored gun is then retested after you are satisfied it has been improved as much as possible. The emission life test gives an approximate indication of how long the restored gun will give an acceptable picture.
You may be concerned about using restoration because of a bad experience in the past. Many technicians have tried a black box that was supposed to be the ultimate answer in CRT restoration. After restoring a few tubes, these boxes often ruined more tubes than they improved. We can understand your concern. That is why we don't try to sell restoration as magic. It may be reassuring to know that Sencor has been making CRT testers and restorers for 30 years. We have sold nearly 20,000 CRT testers in that time. Beyond that, we have years of experience with the 5-level progressive restoration system because the CR31 tester uses exactly the same system. A survey of 1,400 CR31 owners confirmed that progressive restoration works on 9 out of 10 bad CRTs. This is why we can confidently guarantee that you, too, can restore 9 out of 10 bad CRTs with the CR70.
This brings us to one last point. The tester is also protected from possible damage from a CRT, too. First, the CR70 has a special magnetic circuit breaker to protect against damage caused by a shorted tube or an incorrect setup. Then, the internal circuits are protected against possible damage from a high-voltage discharge with special metal oxide varistors. These MOVs provide a safe discharge path in case there is some high voltage remaining on the tube due to a defect in the tripler, a tripler without a bleeder resistor, or voltage recovery due to dielectric absorption.
Remember, the 4 exclusive Sencor guarantees. 1. The Beam Builder tests every CRT, now or in the future. 2. The Beam Builder is the most reliable tester available. 3. The Beam Builder will restore 9 out of every 10 weak or shorted CRTs. 4. The Beam Builder is fully protected against overload. Talk to your Sencor sales engineer if you have any questions about these guarantees.
When you choose Sencor, you are choosing test equipment from the leader in American-made analyzing equipment for over 40 years. Every Sencor product is innovatively designed with your time in mind. Each is supported by a team of specialists dedicated to helping you use your Sencor instruments more effectively. Before you look at any other brand of test equipment, consider first the 25 exclusive services that back each Sencor product. Sencor's value-added services fall into 5 categories. They are innovative product design, after-the-sale support, fast, reliable service, rock-solid guarantees, and finally, versatile purchasing options. Let's take a look at each.
When you choose Sencor, you're choosing innovative products designed to make your testing easier and more reliable. Sencor instruments include exclusive tests guaranteed to save you hours per day. But even with innovative tests, Sencor is easy to use. Sencor designers know it costs you dearly to fiddle with a knob, connect an extra test lead, or interpret inconclusive results. Sencor products are so logical, you usually operate them without instructions. When you want to know more about a test, Sencor gives you easy-to-learn manuals and simplified operating guides. You don't even worry about errors. Sencor instruments have maximum overload protection. Sencor instruments keep on working when most others are damaged. Best of all, Sencor is manufactured and supported from America's heartland. Every employee strives to produce innovative products of the highest quality.
When you choose Sencor, you get after-the-sale support second to none in the industry. Just dial 1-800-SENCOR anytime you have a question about our products or services. Your call will be answered by a specialist in our customer call center. Amy, could you tell me what happens when a customer calls into our center?
We can answer most questions. Calls are rarely transferred to another person or department. If you need specific information, we inform your sales engineer. He has a degree in electronics so that he gives correct answers. Sencor's application engineers are available for questions about using an instrument. Application engineers also bring technical schools to your area. These technical workshops explain how to use Sencor instruments effectively. Between workshops, technical information comes to your mailbox through the industry-exclusive Sencor News. Technical articles explain testing methods and update you on the latest Sencor instruments. Exclusive Tech Tip technical bulletins and Tech Tape video programs provide even more specific information and training.
The third way that Sencor differs from all their competition is with our factory direct service. When you send any product for service, it is repaired and on its way back to you within 72 hours, in or out of warranty. Besides being repaired, it is also renovated with the latest circuit updates added automatically under the Sencor 100% made-right lifetime guarantee. Each unit is recalibrated to manufacturing tolerances referenced to Sencor's Traceable Standards Lab. While your unit is in for service, you can even rent a loaner for zero downtime servicing. If you order replacement parts, Sencor guarantees fast delivery. If we cannot ship a part to you within 48 hours, you get the part absolutely free of charge. Advice on servicing your unit is also toll-free call away. Dial 1-800-SENCOR to talk directly with a service technician.
The fourth main point, Sencor puts all of this in writing with 5 rock-solid guarantees. First, every new instrument has Sencor's 30-day proof of performance guarantee to let you know you've made the right choice. If the new instrument doesn't do everything you think it should, return it for a full refund, including shipping. Second, in the unlikely event of problems, Each unit has a full 1-year product warranty. But it's only fair to tell you that less than 2% of all instruments shipped each year need service. Third, Sencor's 5-year rust-proof warranty covers all metal parts. If any part rusts, it will be replaced at no charge.
Fourth, every instrument from Sencor is covered by the industry's only made-right lifetime guarantee. This buyer's protection plan corrects any manufacturing defects for as long as you own the instrument. Finally, the service department gives you a brand new 90-day guarantee every time your unit comes here for service.
The fifth major point, Sencor tailor-makes purchasing plans to fit your budget. If you purchase with cash, you get free freight and an extra discount. Sencor's exclusive pay-as-you-grow program lets you increase productivity now while your instruments pay for themselves through increased productivity. Or you can bill accessories or instruments to your Visa or MasterCard for instant orders. Sencor also offers a liberal lease plan. Finally, if you want to evaluate a unit before you buy, check into Sencor's 10-day Try Before You Buy program. Put the unit through its paces to prove it does everything you want. No matter how you order, you get fast delivery. Over 95% of all orders are shipped right from our warehouse the day after the paperwork arrives.
These 25 value-added services apply to every Sencor product. You get the finest test equipment, plus a company dedicated to making you more successful. For more than 40 years now, Sencor instruments have been innovatively designed with your time in mind.